2024, Argentina menentang Colombia. Secara langsung 15 Julai, 8 pagi. Rocking the continent. Di Astro dan Astro Go.
Stream View Nafsu di Astro Baharu. Diselubungi dunia penuh kegelapan.
Budak tu adik perempuan saya. Tahu tak dia pergi mana? Adik kau tu kena rasuk, kau faham tak?
Saya tengah bersedia, Ayah, untuk umumkan kewujudan saya.
Berselindung di sebalik kebenaran.
Gusti tu siapa?
Saya dah buka balik hijab saya.
Di mana segalanya menunggu masa untuk didedahkan.
Let's give the audience a hell of a show.
Saksikan episod Baharu Nafsu di View. Stream di Astro Baharu sekarang.
UEFA Euro 2024 ke semua 51 perlawanan secara langsung di Sport TV dengan Astro.
Kau hari-hari pakai uniform, ada logo dekat dada kau. Ada Allah, ada Muhammad. Kau tak malu ke?
Share. Sibu dan stream on demand atau sila ke saluran 480.
Gempur di AWANI 7.45.
Perebutan takhta kini di kemuncaknya.
What a clean strike!
Inilah perjuangan terakhir untuk mencipta sejarah.
This is just perfect.
Perlawanan akhir CONMEBOL Copa America USA 2024. Argentina menentang Colombia. Secara langsung 15 Julai, 8 pagi. Rocking the continent. Di Astro dan Astro Go.
Good evening, you're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Faye Kwan. The newly launched cargo rail service connecting Malaysia, Thailand, Laos and China, known as the ASEAN Express, has returned to Malaysia after a 2-week trip. This marks its first completed journey since departing for Chongqing on June 27th. The train was welcomed at its final stop at Container National Inland Clearance Depot at 11 a.m. on Thursday. Another train travelling in the opposite direction also arrived at its destination in Chongqing, carrying electronic appliances and agricultural products. The transit time was just under 14 days, significantly faster than the sea freight route, which could take up to 3 weeks. The ASEAN Express is set to connect new trade routes and inland ports across the region. Kereta Api Tanah Melayu Berhad (KTMB) intends to run 2 to 3 services a month between Kelana Jaya and Chongqing, with plans to eventually increase frequency to daily services. A second suspect in the cyberbullying case involving the death of a social media influencer has been detained. The man, in his 40s, was arrested in Setapak yesterday and taken into custody by the Sentul police. Police also issued a 2-day remand extension for a 35-year-old woman, the first suspect linked to the victim who reportedly took her own life. A day before her death, the 30-year-old victim filed a police report expressing fears of being raped and killed following harassment on TikTok. Both suspects allegedly cyberbullied, harassed, threatened and made derogatory statements about the victim, causing her immense stress and public humiliation. Communications Minister Fahmi Fadzil is scheduled to meet with TikTok representatives on Friday to discuss the governance of the social media platform. The government's practice of last-minute announcements on subsidy rationalisation is to prevent traders from exploiting the situation. According to Economy Minister Rafizi Ramli, this is because any advance notice could lead to price hikes by traders.
Kalau contohnya sudah diumumkan lebih awal berapa dan sebagainya, itu akan menyebabkan kenaikan harga barang itu boleh berlaku berkali-kali. Dan sebab itu keputusan kerajaan ialah lebih baik sekiranya keputusan itu dibuat apabila semuanya telah selesai di peringkat kerajaan, kerana itu akan mengurangkan risiko kenaikan yang berkali-kali berbulan-bulan berlaku.
Commenting on the RON 95 subsidy rationalisation, Rafizi said the government was currently refining the targeting mechanism using data from the central database hub, PADU. He added that the government planned to leverage PADU's data to enhance socio-economic programs, optimize resources and reduce wastage. Bank Negara has kept the overnight policy rate, OPR, unchanged at 3% following the conclusion of its two-day Monetary Policy Committee meeting. The decision sees the central bank staying put on the benchmark lending rate since it was last raised 25 basis points in May last year. BNM said at the current OPR level, the monetary policy stance remains supportive of the economy and is consistent with the current assessment of inflation and growth prospects. The central bank said the latest indicators point towards sustained strength in economic activity in the second quarter of 2024, driven by resilient domestic expenditure and better export performance. It said it expects exports to be further lifted by the global tech upcycle, given Malaysia's position in the semiconductor supply chain, as well as continued strength in non-electrical and electronics goods. Meanwhile, tourist arrivals and spending are also poised to rise further. Continued employment and wage growth, as well as policy measures, will continue to support household spending. Investment activity would be supported by the ongoing progress of multi-year projects in both the private and public sectors. The growth outlook is subject to downside risks from weaker than expected external demand and larger declines in commodity production. As for the ringgit, BNM said it continues to be primarily driven by external factors, namely expectations of major economies' monetary policy paths and ongoing geopolitical tensions. We'll be back with more after the break.
Perlawanan akhir UEFA Euro 2024 tiba. Sertai kami dan saksikan sejarah yang bakal dicipta. Pelbagai aktiviti dan hadiah menarik menanti anda untuk dimenangi. Jumpa di sana.
Terdapat sedikit kebimbangan berkaitan dengan peningkatan kos sara hidup dan juga bagaimana untuk orang ramai mengimbangi peningkatan kos itu dengan perbelanjaan hari raya nanti. Sepanjang bulan Ramadan nanti, cuaca dijangka panas kering sepanjang 30 hari berkenaan.
Peniaga makanan di Bazar Ramadan dinasihatkan supaya jujur dalam menyediakan makanan, terutamanya dari sudut kualiti dan penjagaan makanan.
Welcome back. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim recently announced Malaysia's intention in joining BRICS. Astro AWANI correspondent Fana Sheikh explores Malaysia's potential entry into the bloc during the recent BRICS Civil Forum in Moscow, Russia.
I'm in Moscow, Russia, where I just attended the BRICS Civil Forum. BRICS is a coalition of several major economies such as Brazil, Russia, China, India, South Africa and more, making up a substantial portion of the global GDP. Now, Malaysia has shown an interest in joining BRICS as indicated by our Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, following the footsteps of several other ASEAN countries such as Myanmar, Laos and even Thailand, which showed similar interest. Now, what makes BRICS attractive and what can Malaysia potentially benefit from it? Let's find out more.
BRICS is about the countries who want to have the agenda that is important for them, important for their development, important for the well-being of their people, not imposing or dictating any no values nor political, implications. So it's a kind of a free choice for of people and of countries that are willing to make the world better. To what can Malaysia get from partnership with BRICS is more interaction, more resources to spend, more trade, because we saw intra-BRICS trade growing much faster than BRICS in other countries of the world. Definitely more best practice exchanges, because we're pulling our resources together, be it in technology, be it high technology, artificial intelligence, etc., be it in let's say agricultural development, also very important. Food security, one of their most important issues on the agenda of developing world, and having resources, pooling knowledge together, pooling resources together would definitely benefit all the members or members of BRICS and partners.
Victoria also highlights ASEAN's significance for future cooperation.
There will be no immediate expansion further on, but of course there is a decision, and they are very much elaborating criteria on how to work with partners, and ASEAN could be part of that. ASEAN has evolved since 1967 into a rather loose but also well-structured cooperation scheme in different areas, organization, right, Association of Southeast Asian States, and be it in economics and trade and finance, be it in security area, there's specific IRF forum, as we know, and ASEAN Plus. So this is also good experience sharing, and also in a way putting forward integration of integrations concept, when we have different like-minded organizations or mechanisms, international mechanisms, that could be pulling their resources together and promoting, this change, positive change for all those involved of the world order.
Meanwhile, Israel has ordered all residents in Gaza City to evacuate to the central Gaza Strip ahead of a wider military operation. The Israel Defense Forces dropped leaflets over the city, urging civilians to flee south along two designated routes that lead to shelters in Deir al-Balah and Al-Zawaida. The warning comes days after the military announced a new offensive in the region. It is the second time since October 7th that Gaza City as a whole has been asked to evacuate. There are estimated to be more than 250,000 people still living in the area. Hamas said Israel's renewed activity threatened negotiations of a potential ceasefire and hostage release deal, which resumed on Wednesday in Qatar. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu emphasized his country's commitment to a deal as long as its red lines were preserved. Former President Donald Trump will be officially nominated next week at the Republican National Convention. The political gathering will feature televised speeches by rising Republican stars and Trump's choice for a running mate.
The main action for the quadrennial event will be held from July 15th to 18th at the Fiserv Forum, an arena that is the home to the Milwaukee Bucks professional basketball team. More than 50,000 people, including hundreds of journalists from around the world, are expected to attend. Party delegates from all 50 states and 6 U.S. territories will officially select nominees for president and vice president at the convention.
Ever since John F. Kennedy picked Lyndon Johnson to be his running mate, and we had this Boston-Austin 1-2 political punch, it's always been thought that the nominee for either major party needed to pick somebody to fill in weaknesses that the nominee has, or geographic balance or something. But it hasn't really played out that way. And I don't think the nominee for vice president is going to be anything but very interesting. I don't think it's actually going to move the needle. So, because there's so much about this man, Donald Trump, that is historic and in its own political space, that I can't imagine the selection of vice president being that powerful. The script for the Republicans practically writes itself. It will begin and end with Joe Biden's presidency being a failed presidency in the eyes of the Republican voter. And there's a lot to work with there. I'm sure they'll talk about the state of the economy because that's always number one for everybody. And there's a lot to work with for Republicans in the name of inflationary pressures that have affected everyone. I think then they'll move to the border. The feeling that the southern border is open to all comers, including enemies of the United States, and is out of control is a powerful message. It's going to move a lot of votes.
Trump secured the vast majority of delegates during the state-by-state Republican nominating process earlier this year, so his selection in Milwaukee is assured and considered a formality. He is expected to accept the nomination with a speech on July 18th, the final night of the convention. Trump is expected to pick his running mate by July 15th, and the vice presidential candidate will then address the convention on July 17th.
Over in Australia, a 28-year-old father has been charged with murder following a house fire in Sydney's west that killed 3 children, including a 5-month-old girl. According to police, the man allegedly set fire to the home while his partner and her 7 children were inside.
A 28-year-old man still remains in Westmead Hospital under police guard and has now been charged this morning with 3 counts of murder, DV related, 5 counts of attempted murder, DV related, and destroy damaged property with intent to endanger life, again domestic violence related.
Emergency services were called to Lalore Park, west of Sydney city centre, around 1 a.m. on Sunday after a fire ripped through a house. 2 boys aged 2 and 6 and a 5-month-old girl were killed in the fire. A 29-year-old woman and 3 boys aged 4, 7 and 11 and a 9-year-old girl were taken to hospital.
That wraps up AWANI Tonight. I'm Faye Kwan. Thank you for watching and good night.